So we're here on the show field at 2024 Pebble Beach. I'm here with Tom Polzinski, who's head of BMW Classic for USA. And behind me, we have the 1972 Turbo Concept from BMW.
Funny story, for me as a kid, I saw this at the Montreal International Auto Show in 1974 and took a black and white photo of it and kept it in my catalog. So that was one of the things, that was one of the things that connected me to BMW, and to have it here on the show field all these years later is super
It was
cool.
meant to be, especially with the GTR, which we just covered with the
Exactly. So this is a very interesting car. I know you've covered some of the aspects of it. Lots of new technologies in it for safety. For example, the soft front bumpers here that were really ubiquitous today, but at the time this was
correct.
Really
and I think they called them regenerative crumple zones.
Exactly. That's demonstrated by the larger seam there to show, because it's a concept car, right? We would never allow a gap that big.
Oh no, no. It had safety steering or something like that.
Safety steering, right? So in the past, the steering column would go straight down to the gear, and if you have an impact, and the steering gear moves back, it moves the steering wheel back. This one had offset with some universal joints. The steering wheel didn't move in the case of a collision. Normal today, a big deal back then.
The other thing we noticed, it was a design and safety showcase at the time.
Correct.
Especially for the Olympics in 1972. Right. So there's designs here that we see today on this car, which is crazy.
And it's interesting you mentioned the Olympics. There's a backstory to all of that. So Bob Lutz, who you probably everyone knows, right? He was the board member for sales and marketing at BMW from 1972 to 1975, somewhere in that area. He's a big fan of designers, and Paul Brock was the BMW designer, in-house designer. Back in those days, we used a lot of design houses like Bertone and Frua and those people, but we had one designer in-house. Paul Brock is a superb designer, but the engineering side of the business was the one that controlled how the cars looked back in the day. And when Lutz came, Paul Brock had a chance to show his creativity with Bob. Originally for the Olympics, the plan was to showcase the E12 5 Series, and Bob said, nah, that's not good enough. So he saw some sketches from Paul Brock, and this was what he was working on. And as a showpiece for the Olympics, when they're in the backyard of your headquarters, this is really, really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think I see, in the back especially, I see cues for the M1, Z1. I mean, there's quad pipes for the M cars.
Yeah.
And even, Horacio made the connection with the two-tone paint, even the Skytop. We saw has a similar kind of a paint. So there's so many ties, which is amazing to see.
And recently, and we never really understood why the front and rear were different. We assumed it was simply because it's regenerative crumple zones. But in a recent interview with Paul Brock, he said, well, I got the inspiration from the French Air Force planes. They have the wing end tanks, and they paint them orange so that people don't bang into them.
Wow.
And so he thought, let's do it on the car. So that's how we ended up with this, and the blending of the paint was something they added. That's a little, backstory to the.
That's great information. And the other cool thing that I read is that this actually has a radar system to see how close it is to the car in front, which, as we know, are on all the new cars.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was pretty far-fetched technology back in that day, but a pretty impressive piece of engineering and overall just beauty.
Yeah, it's great to see, and it's amazing to see it out here in the bright sun with the bright colors here at Pebble Beach for the concourse.
Right. This wedge class behind us here, I knew all these cars from the magazines in their day, and to be able to present this on the field with all these wonderful cars is just fantastic.
It's a great opportunity. It's actually the first time I've ever seen the car, and I'm absolutely blown away.
That's fantastic.
Thanks for your time,
great.
Tom.
That's
really
why we do
appreciate
this.
it. Yeah, exactly.